Hey, everybody. Thanks for hopping on tonight. Hopefully, everybody can hear me. If not, please let me know. I'm trying to talk as directly into the microphone as I can. I'll get started here in just a second, in probably about 30 seconds or so, once I get the screen queued up. But if you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat on the right, and I will get to those questions either as we go through the seminar or at the end. We should have some time to chat. So sit tight. We'll get started in just a second. All right, so thank you guys for hopping on. Sorry you missed the 2027 one, but this will be some good information for you as well, especially if you're starting out or have questions. It's it's definitely two different seminars, that's for sure. This is going to be some different information than we give to the juniors. So I hope this one is helpful. Thank you guys for tuning in. My name is Jason. I help with recruiting for various clubs here in the Metroplex and beyond, actually. So I'm here as a resource for you guys. I don't do like YouTube live videos very often. Not necessarily something I plan to do a bunch. I would much rather do these seminars live and in person in front of the entire team and parents and stuff like that. We don't always get the chance to do that. And with it being January and me being gone like 3 of the next 6 weekends, it feels like, I think that's where I'm gone. Timing gets tight. And so just wanting to get info out there to families if they have questions. So a little bit about me. I did coach college volleyball here in the state of Texas for almost 10 years. I was a Division I head coach, Division I assistant, and a Division II assistant. Recruiting was a big part of my success, both as an assistant and as a head coach. When I left college coaching, I started working with a club in Dallas, and the director of the club said, "Hey, this is Jason. He's a Division I head coach. He's going to be working with all of our top teams over the next few months. So if you have any questions about college or recruiting, like feel free to ask him." And I just got bombarded with questions and parents. I can remember sitting on a couch in kind of the entryway and having like 10 parents kind of surround me all at the same time, asking me a bunch of questions, which is great. I love talking about volleyball, obviously love talking about recruiting. But I noticed there was a huge need for more information into the recruiting process, because at the time, the athletes that some of the athletes that we were training and coaching and things like that, I just remember going, "You should be committed already. There's no reason why you're still uncommitted." And what I realized was there were a lot of athletes and families that took a very passive approach to the recruiting process. And so kind of from that moment on, we started teaching a very proactive recruiting model. And then in 2018, I started PRI, and I've been doing this full time ever since. I talk to college coaches every single day of the week over the phone, over text message, over email. I go to qualifiers, I go to practices. I'm good at my job. There's several reasons for that. College coaches trust me. We have an understanding as far as what we're trying to do. That is always difficult sometimes because there's new coaches every single year that come on that I don't know, that I have to interact with. And so creating that trust consistently is something that I try to do. But the other thing that I point to here when it comes to the recruiting process is the stuff that we are talking about, whether it's in the juniors video or with the sophomores. I am not making this stuff up. This is just not things that I just say. What I'm trying to do with these seminars and even most of the stuff that we post on social media is coming from college coaches, right? And maybe not every single one. There's sometimes pockets and attitudes of generality, and that's fine. Every situation is different. Every personality is different. Every college coach does this recruiting differently. I've said that forever. But the info that we get from college coaches, we are trying to give to you. So we're not just making stuff up. We are trying to tell you what the college coaches that you're trying to get recruited by want you to be doing. Okay. And so there's this, I'm in the middle a lot of, what coaches expect and what parents expect. And I try to disseminate that information as best I can. So with our club families, there's two things that I like to remind them. One, you're not bugging me, you're not bothering me. So please don't feel like you are. Regardless of how small maybe you think the question is, please feel free to reach out, text, email, phone call. Too many conversations I start with, or the family starts with, sorry to bother you. And you're just not. This is what I get paid to do. Okay. So please don't think that you are interrupting anything. If you're interrupting something, I just won't pick up my phone. Okay. But for most of the day, throughout the day, I am available. If I'm not on the phone, or texting with, I find other things to do. We have our one-on-one families that we work with that are a lot of work, and responding to emails from college coaches is a lot of work, and phone calls, college coaches, is a lot of work. So I always have stuff to do, but I definitely typically pick up the phone when it rings. Okay. So please, you're not bothering me. Please use me as a resource. This is why I'm here. If I am not involved in your recruiting process, it does make it really hard for me to help. Okay. So the more I know, the more I can help you guys. Little things like CC me on the emails that you send out. That's helpful for just two quick reasons. One, I can actually make sure that you're sending it to the right coach on staff. Sometimes you're emailing, 3-4 different coaches, or all of the entire staff. You don't need to do that. And I can tell you which coach to really focus on. And then especially right now, there's a bunch of movement with programs and coaches leaving. Just as an example, I know 2 athletes that transferred to a school, and within 48 hours of them showing up on campus, their coach retired or took a job somewhere else. Okay. So there's movement. And I typically, either through my own kind of searching, I hear about most of the jobs. There's not a ton of movement right now. There's definitely still some, but it's not a crazy, everyone got fired year this year. So there's not a ton of movement, so I can keep track of quite a bit of it. And then we need to talk more than once. Sometimes I have phone calls with families in November and I would never hear from them again. And then in May, they're really confused, a lot of them, as to why nothing has happened in their recruiting process. And June 15th is a big question mark, and they're really nervous and they're really anxious. And we try to prepare and be proactive with that as much as we can. So I am a resource. So please use me as much or as often as you guys can. So tonight, the goal is to get some basic foundations done and get you guys an understanding of what the recruiting process looks like and kind of what the landscape is. But we want to have a good kind of ground level of understanding of what's ahead. And then we want to get started, even if it's a little bit slow. It is January. Triple Crown is in a little over a month. Triple Crown's a big weekend for a lot of athletes. And qualifiers start up, just as fast. And for a lot of athletes, we have until May. May is the next quiet period. Well, there's some quiet periods in between. I'm not going to get into that. May is the next big, long, quiet period before camps and stuff start in June for a lot of these schools. So the window is fairly small. And so it's important that we get started. And then just, understanding what's ahead. What does the future hold? Again, we need to be as proactive as we can. We can't prepare you guys for every situation, but we can at least talk about a lot of them and set some good expectations. Okay, there are a lot of schools for you guys to choose from. I know typically when we're first sending out emails, we email Baylor and Rice and Clemson for some reason, and LSU and Oklahoma because they're close to Texas and in the SEC, right? Like those. And actually, it's funny. I had a conversation with the Auburn coach today. I know they're recruiting. They have 3 athletes of mine that they're recruiting, and that's it. Okay, So it's important to understand that some of these big schools, they're recruiting a very, very small number of athletes, right? And so we do have to sometimes look outside of the Power Five. And so it's important to make sure that your list is broad, that you're casting a wide net, and that your list of schools makes sense. But there are a lot of options. Not every school is an option for various reasons, and I totally understand that. But there are a lot of options. Okay. If you are not, I think I go into these stats here in a little bit, but if you're not a top 40, 50 athlete in the state of Texas, you're probably not going to a Power Five school, just in general. I used to spend a lot more time talking about scholarships to really get parents to understand how scholarships work and why it's important. And scholarships are important. It's important that you understand that not every athlete in the country is on a full ride. It's important that you understand 1.2% of the athletes that are playing high school volleyball across the country are playing Division One. Less than 1% are actually on full rides or even on scholarship at the Division One level. And so paying for school is going to be something that a majority of families and athletes need to process and need to think about. The number of athletes that are on full rides for all 4 years of their college is significantly smaller than the athletes that are on partials. Okay. So paying for school is going to be part of this process. But there are a lot of scholarships out there for Division One, Division Two. Division Three does not do athletic aid. And then NAIA, yes, they have scholarships. I know that's some people don't realize that, but NAIA does have scholarships. They work very similar to Division Two. They just probably don't have as much money. I made last fall a 15-minute video explaining the new structure for Division One scholarships. It has changed recently. We went from 12 full rides in a head counter model to 18 full rides in a equivalency model. And what a lot of people assumed by that was, hey, Jason, this is a 50% increase in scholarships for Division One. No, it's not. There are very few programs across the country, statistically, that are going to be fully funded at 18 scholarships. It's not across the board for Power Five schools either. There are lots of Power Five schools that are not going to be fully funded at 18 scholarships. There are some schools at the Power Five that are saying they're fully funded at 18 scholarships, but they're using 3 of those 18 scholarships to pay for cost of attendance. And so they're only going to have 15 athletes on a full ride, even though they're going to say that they're fully funded at 18 scholarships. They're not going to have 18 athletes on a full ride. So it gets all a little bit confusing. And I'm happy to have more conversations with families if they have more questions about scholarships. But a fully funded Division One program that has opted into rev share has 18 scholarships. Okay, and they're on an equivalency model. That's the max. When we flip from a head counter at 12 to an equivalency model at 18 scholarships, with the head counter being with a fully funded program being at 12 scholarships, like we were doing a couple years ago, you're probably looking at like 75% of Division One programs were fully funded, okay, at 12 scholarships. Now with the switch to fully funded being 18, you're looking at that kind of flipping on its head to where only probably 20 to 25% of Division One programs are going to be fully funded. Those are my rough numbers. I have not I've not gone into every Division One school across the country and figured that out, but those are just kind of my rough estimates based on the information that I have and who I talk to. So Division Two fully funded at 8 scholarships. That's an equivalency, so they can pass those 8 scholarships to as many athletes as they want, to 16, 18, 20 athletes, and they can put as many athletes as they want on scholarship, but they only have 8 scholarships to choose from. So partials, half scholarships, things like that. I was going to say something. Most Division Two programs have somewhere around 6 scholarships. That's fairly normal. NAIA fully funded, similar to Division Two, at 8 scholarships. Okay. Junior college, which is a fantastic option. Head counter still, as far as I know, that has not changed. 13 scholarships, full ride. Full ride and partial scholarships available for Division One, Division Two junior college schools. There's some structure to JUCO, just like there is NCAA. NAIA, like I said, varies by region and conference, but they have a max of 8 scholarships, usually partial scholarships, stacking with academic money. Division II does something similar. Everyone always asks, Jason, what's NAIA? If you haven't heard of it or if you're not involved with NAIA schools, I like to think of NAIA and the NCAA as like USAV and AAUs or JVA, right? So like USAV is kind of the NCAA and the NAIA is like JVA. Not that they're like worse, but or even really smaller, because JVA and AAUs are huge. But it's two governing bodies that have different systems and rules and guidances in place, two different structures kind of over a group of teams and schools and colleges and things like that. So different governing bodies. So this is kind of my graphic, and it's a little bit hard to understand unless you know what all the numbers mean. But basically, you get down to it, and like I said, 45 to 50 athletes in the state of Texas are signing with a Power 5 school every year. That's the number, okay? You have, these are two different, if you look at the 110 and the 76, so those are two different years that I ran these numbers and ran these stats, and it's about time that I do it again. But 110 out of 170 athletes from the state of Texas that are playing in the Power 5. So total number of athletes that are playing in Power 5 at this first kind of group is 1,078. That's about 16% of the athletes that are playing Power 5 are from the state of Texas. Out of those 170, 110 were at a Texas, Oklahoma, or Louisiana school. Okay, that's roughly 60%. The number is definitely less when we get to a couple years down the road. This is like post-COVID, or in kind of the middle of COVID, right after COVID, when you had a lot of fifth-year transfers kind of going all over the place. And that's fine. That's just kind of how the process works. But you're still at roughly 16% of athletes from the state of Texas playing in the Power 5. Okay. I'm still going to stand by some of these other numbers when it comes to walking on. Probably roughly 25 to 30% of Division I rosters are walking on. That's something to consider. They are not on scholarship. That might change a little bit now, moving to an equivalency, but I'm kind of going to sit on those numbers for the time being until I get some more info. I did a whole video on this 40% playing time thing, where basically you look at a roster and 40% of the roster is playing in less than half of the team's sets. So 10 out of your 16 athletes are playing roughly all the time, and the rest of the roster is playing in fewer than half. And half was just like, it's just a number. For most of that 40%, it's significantly less than half. And I have a whole video on that on my YouTube channel if you want to go watch that. I think that was last Friday that I posted that on the 2nd. So that should be near the top. So again, how are you paying for school, parents? Sorry, it is a conversation that you probably need to have and process and think about, because for most families, you are probably going to pay for something when it comes to school. And so when it comes to your list, if you're a libero and you want to go to school at Rice and they're not scholarshiping a libero in your class, then you are probably going to walk on, and Rice is really expensive. Okay. So it's just something to think about and process. Every school handles scholarships and academic aid and financial aid. Every school handles it a little bit differently for the most part, except for a few exceptions. Most athletes, most students even, are not paying sticker price for any of these schools. They're getting academic money. They're getting money from outside sources. There's tons of scholarships that you can apply for at every single one of these schools. I heard a coaching friend of mine was telling me they had a wrestling scholarship, like a wrestling endowment scholarship. Came from a wrestling endowment that they gave out to typically wrestlers, but everyone was it was open for everyone to apply, and apparently no wrestlers applied for the scholarship that year, and this volleyball player got like $2,000, which is, it's not a ton of money, but it's better than paying the $2,000, right? So it's definitely something to think about. Okay, interest. Talk about interest a lot. Interest is very important. You need to communicate your interest in a program. That is 100% something that needs to happen as often as consistently as possible. Um, interest is talk about what interest is not really important, because sometimes you're going to get a response to an email that you sent, and sometimes you're going to get a camp invite, and sometimes a coach is going to show up to your court, right? Potentially that means they're interested, but it does not mean that you are the only athlete that they are recruiting, okay? Or that you're even in their top 5, okay? So questionnaires, camp invites, stickers, even, I mean, we have athletes, this has changed a little bit the last couple of years, but we have athletes every year that have a phone call from a school on June 15th. They never hear from that school again. They don't text them back. They don't email them back. They don't call again, right? So even something as a phone call on June 15th doesn't necessarily, or an email or a text, like doesn't necessarily mean that you're top of the board interest rise, right? And we do want some of the interest, right? We'll take a little bit of interest. We'll take being top 5. We'll take being top 10. Sometimes that's good. That means you're getting in front of the right coaches, you're getting in front of the right schools, helps kind of steer you in that direction, okay? What we really, really want is we want college coaches showing up at your court for long periods of time and for multiple times. We really want phone calls. When it comes down to it, again, for several athletes, for several hundred athletes, if you want to go watch my kind of post June 15th breakdown from the summer, I would encourage you to go watch that, and that'll give you a little more context and insight to what I'm talking about when it comes to June 15th. That's a really good video for you to watch. If you can't find that one, please let me know. I'll send you the link. But it's on there on the YouTube channel. We want phone calls on June 15th. We want communication. There's a few hundred athletes that are going to commit pretty quickly before we get to August. But there's still a lot of athletes after that haven't committed. Okay. And we need the consistent communication. I just talked about this with the juniors, but I'll go through it real quick. I mentioned talking. And when I get in front of athletes on a team, I'll say to juniors, I'll say, how many of you are talking to college coaches right now? And like 10 of the 15 will raise their hand, right? And I say, okay, great. How many of you had a phone call with one of those coaches in the last 2 weeks? And almost all the time, except for maybe 1 or 2 athletes, right? Almost every single time, everyone will put their hands back down. Okay. So when we talk about talking, when we mention the word talking, we're talking about consistent communication. Okay. Consistent communication is like every other week, if not every week, with coaches and coaching staffs, and with athletes and coaching staff. We've got to be consistent in our communication. Okay. That's a big deal. So the 2 things, the top 75 or top 5. Okay. I share this story every year now. The staff prior to Salima and Craig being at Notre Dame, the previous staff, they sent out 75 t-shirts to their top 75 athletes in the 2023 class. Okay. So if you get an email, if you get a t-shirt in the mail from Notre Dame, you're pretty pumped. Like, they're interested. I just got a Notre Dame volleyball t-shirt in the mail. Like, that's pretty awesome. Okay. Are you number 1 or number 75? Because there's a huge difference between those 2 things. Okay. The other thing, you're top 5 at 4 schools. Awesome. In this current climate, again, go watch that June 15th video that I'm referencing to get a little more context here. But in our current recruiting climate, being top 5 isn't even really good enough. We need to be top 1 or 2, maybe 3. Okay. Because if you're top 5 at 5 different schools, they might not even get to their 3rd or their 4th, and then they're not getting to you. Right. And so it's important to make sure that the schools that you are most interested in are also the same interested in you. Okay. That's a really important thing, especially as you go throughout the club season, especially when you're picking camp. One of the other seminars that we do for sophomores is I talk about the 4 C's of interest, and camp is one of those C's. Resources do matter. Okay. So not all Division I's are created equal. Not all of them have staffs that send a bunch of emails. I passed on a bunch of emails from LSU earlier today to a handful of athletes. Not every program in the country is doing that. Some programs don't want to, or don't like it, or whatever. And then there's other Division I programs that are really interested in you, and you're going to be their number 1, but you're not going to know until they call you on June 15th. And then other schools are going to send you a camp invite every week. And they're not even going to reach out to you on June 15th. Okay, everyone does this process a little bit different, which is frustrating, which is why the communication part is really important. Okay, so for those athletes that are committing right after June 15th, this doesn't necessarily apply to them, but realistically, when we're talking about interest, when we're talking about the other 95% of the athletes that are playing volleyball across the country, you have to keep grinding out and grinding through this process until you start making visits. Okay. Until you step foot on campus on a visit, an official or unofficial doesn't necessarily matter to me. A visit's visit in a lot of ways. I get they're paying for one and not paying for one and the other, but the interest is still going to be there from their end, which is why you're there on campus. Once you get there, you can say, okay, this school is really interested. Like this is positive. Until that, not everything is fluff, but potentially a lot of it is fluff. Okay. And so we have to keep pursuing schools and continue to engage and with programs until we get to this interest part. Okay. Huddle/ball time. If you are at a club that is using huddle and or ball time, and I'm very unclear about how the two systems are merging at this point, and I can't get anybody at huddle to ball time to talk to me about it. So maybe someday, maybe I'll see them out at Triple Crown or something like that, and they'll want to talk to me about it then. But if your club is using huddle or ball time, it is a fantastic tool. Please use it. Please make your own highlights. Please do not use the auto-generated highlights as your foundation for recruiting. They are not good. They are not helpful to your recruiting process in general. And for 50% of the athletes out there, the auto-generated highlights aren't even showing you doing the skills that college coaches want to see you do, right? For setters, the auto-generated highlights never show you setting. For liberos, the number one thing about liberos when you're getting recruited is going to be serve receive. And for all of the auto-generated highlights through huddle, they will not show you serve receive passing a ball. And so it's not necessarily to your benefit to lean on those auto-generated highlights. So go in there, make your own huddle highlights. I have walkthroughs on my YouTube channel that can take you through all of that. Okay. Highlight film. I think we go through all of these. Yeah. Okay. So in your highlight film, you need to front load the first 30 seconds. It's got to be your best stuff. You have to grab my attention. Every single time you send film to a college coach, you need to put your best stuff at the front. You just do. If you have schools that are just madly in love with you and they're going to watch 4 minutes of you serve receive passing, it's less important. But until you get to that point, you do need to be encouraging them to keep watching, right? When it comes to your highlights. And so best of the best. I have heard over the years, every once in a while, someone will say, well, this coach said that we don't need to send highlights, or someone said that college coaches don't like to watch highlights. They only like to watch full match film. And I get that there's probably a small percent of college coaches that applies to in general, but for the most part, no one has time to watch full match film. None of these college coaches do, which is why highlights are really important, because I can evaluate your best stuff in the best 30 seconds. I don't have to skip, or I don't have to fast forward. I can figure out whether or not I'm recruiting you within the first 20 seconds of watching your film, and then go from there. And so it's a little bit silly to say that film is not important. I have had some college coaches, I'll be honest, that have said, you don't need to send us film. And those coaches are typically your Power 5 coaches that are recruiting 5 to 6 kids across the entire country anyway. And so, yeah, they're going every weekend to watch 5 or 6 kids at the most, probably in one class. And so, yeah, no one else needs to see them film because they're not recruiting any of those athletes, right? And I don't need, those 5 or 6 to send me film because I'm watching them play every weekend, right? So those are just outliers for the most part. For the other 95, 98% of athletes across the country, you got to send film. Sorry. After the first 30 seconds, you can do some longer rallies, some full transition. One of the things that I'm always telling setters, I don't want to see you set free ball passes, right? Like you're already standing at the net. It's a perfect pass, and you can set your middles from a perfect pass on a free ball. Like, that's great. It's awesome. I'm big fan of that. But show me what you do the 90% of the time, right? When it's not a perfect pass and it's not a free ball. Show me those clips. Show me how you make your hitters better in bad situations. Okay. That's That's really important. The goal of a highlight film, the goal of film is to get college coaches to watch more film. So in some ways, it's important that you have a highlight film and then you have more film after that for them to watch, either more highlights or like skills clips. We talked with liberos about splitting their serve receive passing and their defensive passing, especially on qualifier weekends because you get a lot of touches. But college coaches should want to watch more film, or they need to be saying, I got to reach out to Jason, or we need to go watch this kid play live. Let's mark her in UA and give her a heart or whatever. Okay. Those are the responses that you should be getting from your film. If your film is not getting those responses, and I have a YouTube video that dives into this a little bit more. But if you're not getting that response from college coaches, like they're not coming to watch you play or they're not responding, then your highlights aren't good enough. They're not showing you in the best possible light, so to speak. You're not putting your best foot forward. Okay. Or you're just emailing the wrong coaches and they're watching your film and going, this athlete isn't going to help us win our conference. And so then they move on. Okay. But the first button that college coaches are clicking should be your highlights. Okay. Yeah, I think that was it on that. I use Productive Recruit. If you're interested in using Productive Recruit, please let me know. I like Productive Recruit over Sports Recruits. Sports Recruits has not really changed their platform over the last decade or so, from my perspective. And we have a couple clubs using Sports Recruits, and it's fine for what it is. But it's not my favorite on the back end. On kind of my end, the stuff I can do on Productive Recruit is much better. We have a couple clubs using Productive Recruit, and then all of our one-on-one athletes that we have at PRI are using Productive Recruit. It's a really good tool. It's not doing the recruiting for you. That's something to keep in mind. Neither is Sports Recruits. Some families think, well, we have a Sports Recruits account, and that's great that you do, but now what? Now, how do you use it, right? Like, again, it's still a tool, okay? But we use Productive Recruit. If that's something you're interested in, you want to look at, let me know. I can send you a link to that. But Productive Recruit, Sports Recruits, NCSA, like those types of platforms are tools, okay? And tools are only helpful and beneficial if you know how to use them, okay? The analogy I always talk about when it comes to recruiting as a whole is like, I can have all the tools I need to build a house, but if I don't know how to build a house, the tools are kind of useless, right? So having an Instagram only volleyball account or having a Productive Recruit account, like those things in and of themselves aren't necessarily going to do the recruiting for you. You need to know how the recruiting process works and how to use the tools, right? Like all that is really important. So if you're using something like Productive Recruit or Sports Recruits, awesome. Use it. It's a good tool. Use it to your full advantage. If you have any questions on how you can be using it better, let me know. Because like I said, they are good tools. Okay. All right. We're almost there. Everything for sophomores gears up towards June 15th. Now, in our current recruiting climate, Division I schools cannot talk to you until June 15th. Division II and Division III schools can talk to you all they want right now in January if they would like. Some Division II programs, just because they can talk to you, they're going to choose not to. And that is solely up to them as far as their timeline and how they do things and all of that. To each their own, okay? But everything that you're doing right now as a sophomore gears up to June 15th, because that's the first time that you get to talk to Division I schools. It's the first time typically that a lot of these Division II schools are going to reach out to you, just because that's the timeline that Division I is on. And so they kind of keep that same standard. And so that is a big day on our calendar, and everything that we're doing, reaching out to schools, training, right? Like practicing phone calls, researching schools, all that. Everything we're doing now gears up towards June 15th. Between now and the end of May, okay, and really now between the start of May, January, February, March, April, next 4 months, you should be able to send 500 emails. And I know that sounds like a lot. It sounds super daunting when I first lay it out there. But if you have 50 schools and you are emailing schools before a qualifier to say, hey, or before Triple Crown, let's say you're doing Triple Crown and 3 qualifiers, right? Lone Star, Salt Lake City, and let's say Triple Crown, Lone Star, Salt Lake City, and let's say Vegas. You're going 4 qualifiers, okay? If I email those schools before all of those tournaments, my 50 schools, before every tournament, that's 200 emails. if I email all of my 50 schools after each of those tournaments with a highlight film from the previous tournament, right? See where this is going? We sandwich in between the tournaments and qualifiers. That's 400 emails. And then I only have a couple more emails that I need to send, really, to the list of schools. So then I'm going to have some gaps. I'm going to have like 3 or 4 weeks potentially where I'm not playing. And so I want to send an update on how things are going and things like that. And that's the next 100 emails that we're sending. Ideally, we're taking that list of 50 schools down to 30, down to 10 or 15. So then you have an idea of where you want to go to camp, clinics, showcases. Sometimes that can help narrow that list down a little bit. But potentially we're not sending 50 emails, or hopefully we're not sending 50 emails every other week for the entire club season. But this is the idea, right? This is kind of the goal. You have to reach out to college coaches. You have to put yourself in front of them. The YouTube video that I posted today, if you haven't gone and watched that, please go watch that one. It is very, very imperative. It just points directly to the stuff that I'm talking about as far as engaging with college coaches and making sure that they know you're interested. I talk to college coaches every year in May or at nationals, right? And they go, man, Jason, if we would have known she was interested in us, we would have recruited her a little bit harder. Okay. And so you don't want to be the athlete on the other side of that. Okay. And chances are that athlete ended up okay, but maybe she's going to her yeah. So just, there are some times when coaches would have recruited you more if they would have known that you were more interested. So stick with it. Okay. Keep reaching out to schools. And then we'll talk about camps when we get to the 4 C's of recruiting. Okay. That's all I got. If you, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do that. We're going to do more of these, hopefully, ideally, more live stuff, more seminars, more coaching, more things for you guys throughout the club season, because it's a busy time. So I'm trying to get you guys as many opportunities as I can to give you info. If you're not following me on social media, please do that. You can follow myself or Michelle. I'm at Parallel Recruiting Initiative on Facebook and Instagram. And then Michelle is like PRI Volleyball. And then I think on TikTok, she's like PRI.volleyball. Then if you're not getting the monthly club newsletter, I would encourage you to let me know. And so I can send you the link to that. But that is it. That's all I have. Oh no, you just said you lost sound. That's no good. Okay. Well, hopefully it all got recorded and you can go back and listen to the stuff that went quiet. On my microphone, I'm like not even hitting the second green, and I have this microphone like right into my face. And so I'm not sure if that's me or what it is. I'm not entirely sure. And I haven't been able to play back the first one yet to see if I got the sound right or if the sound was bad. So hopefully you guys could hear me that entire time. Maybe you couldn't. I will learn, and we will do better next time. If this is absolutely dead silent and muted, then we will try again in a couple weeks, and I'll do another one of these. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I can sit on and answer some of those questions here for a little bit. If you guys want to throw them up in the chat, I'd be happy to answer some of those questions for you. But I will stay on for just another minute or so, and then I'll end it. But if you guys have questions, please let me know. Yeah, it should be up on my YouTube channel. It takes a little bit for it to kind of process and go through all the things that it goes through. But if you go on my YouTube channel page, there should be a tab at the top that says live events or something like that. And then you should be able to go back and watch this really anytime. And then if you have more questions, feel free to let me know. But yeah, it should be available live or not live, but it should be available kind of on record on my YouTube channel. So hopefully that works. But if not, feel free to reach out. We can dive into all the things over a phone call or a Zoom if you guys would like. I've done a couple of Zooms this week with families, so please let me know how else we can help. But thank you guys for sticking around and being on the stream for the seminar, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.